In fact, it's stuff that I had questions about, that people were inquiring minds want to know. And so I'm recording this podcast for you guys specifically on topics you want to hear about, questions that you had about what I'm going to refer to as the mighty micronutrients. So these are things that are essential minerals in our diet that we absolutely need, that we cannot make or really store in any real, large amounts. We got to actually consume them in our food. Hopefully food first. That's always my mantra, right? Get it from your high quality, fresh, organic, non-GMO, well-grown, well-sourced food, number one. And if you can't get enough that way, you can supplement, and we'll talk all about that. But hey, the first one I wanted to jump into is one I think many of you have heard of. In fact, some of you out there may even be taking a supplement with this cool mineral in there. It's called chromium. And chromium is one of these things people out there that don't understand it. In fact, sadly, a lot of physicians don't understand this well, like to poo-poo it because they don't even understand the basics, the very, very basics of chromium. So some people in their uneducated, naive way will say, oh my gosh, chromium, isn't that going to kill you? Well, most likely not if you're taking it from your food and from supplement form, because that's the safe kind of chromium to take. That's called the trivalent chromium. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. It's not the bad stuff. That's the hexavalent chromium, or you guys those science buffs out there, the chromium-6 that has 6 electrons in its valence shell. That stuff is toxic. That's the crap you want to avoid. And it's often in crap. In other words, industrialized crap or wastewater or materials that come out of industrialized places and plants often has this bad kind of chromium, the chromium-6, or the hexavalent chromium, which just means it has 6 electrons in its outer shell, and that stuff is toxic. So we want to avoid that. And of course, we are not talking about that today, other than to tell you that that's the bad stuff, hexavalent chromium, and that's the toxic stuff. And that's the stuff that, in fact, super cool. I thought I would just mention this because as I was researching, I found that just last year, some researchers out of Tokyo found a way to convert this hexavalent chromium that's coming off of, industrialized processing and whatnot, and going into, unfortunately, contaminate some of the water out there. They found a way to actually reduce this, or in other words, dump 3 electrons from 6 to 3 in its valence shell to become this trivalent chromium, which is the safe stuff. And so they found this method to do so just using simple things like water and sunlight and photocatalysts. So it's kind of cool. It came out of the University of Tokyo, Professor Takashiro Akitsu and his team. Super interesting. There's an article on it in Water World that it's all about water quality and how they developed this new approach to mitigating this toxic hexavalent chromium, transforming it into the trivalent chromium, which is actually the good stuff, which is actually what we need in our bodies to do a lot of cool stuff. And most of us don't really get enough from the diet. So we're going to be talking about chromium a little bit and the studies that look at it, what it is, what it does, and why you should care. So why should you care about chromium? Like, what the heck is it? So we're talking about, once again, the trivalent chromium that's found in food and found in supplement form, okay? And specifically chromium picolinate, because that's the safe form that's found in supplement form. In fact, it's in a supplement that I take, and I'll tell you a little bit about that. But basically, chromium is one of those things that has some benefits. And I would say that it's worth it. It's worth taking because it does a lot of good things, specifically for blood sugar balance. And you guys have heard of me talk about ad nauseum about insulin resistance, which 88% of us have, and how chromium can help with that. And there's actually been a few studies looking at that recently. What's the mechanism? They've seen in a bunch of studies that it's been helpful for diabetics in specific, but they didn't know exactly why. And so a recent study that I saw out of, let me see if I can pull that up for you, that I retrieved from PubMed, and it talks about how this process works. It's pretty interesting, actually, because it's involves insulin, right? And that would make sense, right? Insulin is one of those things that if we get resistant to it because we're pumping up our insulin in our blood from eating too many carbs, that can lead to insulin resistance, which ain't good, right? It's literally the cause of so many illnesses, or one of the contributing factors for most of the chronic diseases out there, including diabetes or insulin resistance, which is kind of like an early form of diabetes, typically type 2 diabetes, heart disease, cancer, all kinds of inflammatory conditions, arthritides, bowel disorders, all involve insulin resistance. And the way that chromium can help with this is it actually binds to this complex called chromodulin. There's this cool article in the Journal of Nutritional Biochemistry, which I'm not going to get too into the weeds about because it's a little bit complicated, but I will put it in the show notes, from 2002, the Journal of Nutritional Biochemistry. And it just talks about the cool mechanisms through which chromium binds with insulin through this protein called chromodulin, and its beneficial effects in alleviating or improving, resolving, helping insulin resistance. So super, super cool chemistry. If you guys are into biochemistry or just simple physiology, you know, the how of all this stuff, it's pretty awesome, pretty awesome. Chromodulin, you know, say that to your friends and they're gonna be like, what? Yeah, it's good for chromodulin and insulin and decreasing insulin resistance. Well, let's just talk about a couple of the studies out there. There's one that was done, let's see, randomized controlled trial in the journal Diabetes, Technology and Therapy from 2008, entitled Effects of Chromium, Picolinate, which is the stuff that I personally take. It's in my multivitamin, a small amount, as well as in a powder form, which is super easily absorbed in a little drink that I take every morning. Chromium picolinate, effects of chromium picolinate on food intake and satiety. So it's been shown to attenuate weight gain. And what they found, that in this study, they used a double-blind placebo-controlled trial, which is basically top-tier, excellent type scientific research, right? The randomized controlled trial. This is the stuff that when you do it, you can actually make a conclusion, right? As opposed to the so-called observational studies, which are basically just collecting information from interviewing people, which give you ideas. You can kind of make some correlations, but they can't truly draw conclusions. So to get that, you got to do a randomized controlled trial, which this was, and their results demonstrated that as compared to placebo, it improved food intake. In other words, people ate less food. It improved hunger levels. In other words, they weren't as hungry. It decreased their cravings and also led to decreased body weight. So super cool, super cool. These were all statistically significant. And they say it does have a role in food intake regulation, which may be mediated by this effect that I just mentioned with chromodulin, and it can work many places in the body, including in the brain, which is super cool. And that's how it actually reduces cravings. One of the mechanisms, besides, you know, that cool mechanism I talked about with respect to gut health, where when you eat healthy to promote good gut health, the bacteria changes in your gut and you get rid of the bad bacteria, the stuff that makes you fat, that tells you to eat garbage, and you replace it with good bacteria, stuff like Akkermansia, which is health promoting, right? Anyway, this is cool stuff. That will be in the show notes, the effects of chromium picolinate on food intake and satiety. Another study done in the journal Metabolism from 2010 is entitled Characterization of the Metabolic and Physiologic Response to Chromium Supplementation in Subjects with Type 2 Diabetes. So specifically looking at Type 2 diabetes, and what they found is that they tended to have better sugar control, which was cool. And they also had decreased lipids in those folks that were getting the chromium. So it improved their insulin sensitivity and also improved their lipids. And this was pretty cool, demonstrated in this study as well. So lots of goodness with respect to chromium. Here's a review from 2014 in the Journal of Clinical Pharmacology, which stated it's a review. So it takes a lot of studies and then kind of distills down the findings, systematic review and meta-analysis. I'm a little bit tongue-tied here. of the efficacy and safety of chromium supplementation in diabetes, right? It's an essential mineral. We talked about that. And what they found is that they looked at 25 different randomized controlled trials, and the majority of them showed benefits on both glucose control or blood sugar control, as well as triglycerides. And remember, this is badness. If you have elevated triglycerides, you need to get that fixed. And first and foremost, quickest way to do that is stop the snacking, as well as stop eating highly processed, refined sugars and carbohydrates. Those things will make you fat, right? Remember, fat does not necessarily make you fat, but carbs will make you fat. And that's through these triglycerides, which are increased with carbohydrate consumption, especially those processed ones. And so what they say in conclusion, it suggests all these studies that they looked at, the majority of them, favorable effects of chromium supplementation on glycemic control or blood sugar control in folks with diabetes. It may also additionally improve triglycerides and HDL levels. HDL is the good cholesterol. Chromium supplementation does not increase the risk of adverse events compared with placebo, so it is safe. And in this trial, I believe they used doses of, let me pull this up, around 300. Let me see if I can find that quickly here. Full text article. Sorry about that. I just want to get the units correct for you guys, so you're on board with what they actually use. So I'm just taking a look at the full article here, where I believe it was 300, which is one of the most common ones, 300 mcg, I believe. I'll update that for you. For some reason, my internet is bogging on me, but I believe it was 300 mics on that, which is a common dose for chromium. And I believe that's actually the dose in my special drink that I do every morning, right? You guys have probably heard of it. Many allude to that, called the pink drink. If you want to know more about it, just email me at modernmedicinemovementpodcast@gmail. I believe they use that dose in this study. They've used up to 600, 900, even a gram, even 1,000 micrograms of this. But the common dose is around 300, I believe, which is what I was kind of alluding to. So let me just, we'll move on here. We'll take a quick look at another study that talks about chromium as well. Yeah, 300 micrograms is the common dose. And it's that's the one in my drink, and that's what they used in this study. I just wanted to confirm that. So you guys had the latest and greatest hot off the press here from the Journal of Clinical Pharmacology. All right. So chromium is just one of these cool, I call it a micronutrient because you don't need a lot of it, but having a little bit of it is super cool. It's been shown to be super helpful for blood sugar balance, as I mentioned, as well as decreasing your cravings, right? Because who wants to succumb to our cravings? And I'll just tell you that this is science. This is physiology. You're not weak. It's not your fault. If you're craving stuff that ain't good for you, all these highly processed carbohydrates, junk foods, cookies, crackers, white breads, processed breads, snack foods, basically all of the snack foods for the most part, candy, whatever else, this is not your fault. This is not you being weak. It's not you succumbing to, emotional eating. It's none of that. It's actually science. It's physiology. When your gut is not healthy and you got the bad kind of bacteria like Firmicutes in your gut, they're going to make you want to eat this crap. And so you got to change your gut. I did a podcast, I think I called it Change Your Gut, Change Your Life. So check that one out if you haven't listened to that lately, and talks all about getting your gut healthy. And one of the ways to also, in addition to getting your gut healthy, decrease those crappy sugar cravings that will make you want to eat garbage is get a little chromium into your diet. So chromium is cool. It's something a lot of people don't talk about. I wrote about it a little bit in my book, not too much because my gosh, I could write an entire book on supplementation. And I didn't want to really go there, but I wanted to at least share some basics about supplementation. I just got to throw this in. I couldn't believe I was actually in GNC this week. I went there. It was we actually stopped there because I was looking at some different vitamins. I wanted to see what their best multi was for men, for women, for kids. Just doing a little, just wanted to see right now, present day 2021, what's out there. What are people finding in those, so-called vitamin shops, nutrition shops, the GNCs of the world. And it was, I think for them, super embarrassing that their vitamins were super low quality. And I was shocked. I mean, the guy showed me basically their top vitamin, and most of the stuff in there was not bioavailable and going to be absorbed by our body. For example, the women's vitamin had not folate in it, but it had folic acid, which I've talked about in an entire podcast with MTHFR. A lot of people, up to half of people, have some change in their DNA with respect to the MTHFR, the methyl tetrahydrofolate reductase enzyme, and so they can't process really folic acid at all. In fact, for them, taking folic acid may even make matters worse. So you got to take a methylated folate or 5-methyl folate, which is the kind that's found in the vitamin that I take. And I couldn't even find a GNC vitamin, at least not at this particular location, that had that. They were all folic acid, for example. Also, any of these, not only kids, but adults, either chewable or gummies of any kind, whether it be a multi or vitamin C, like all of them, as the first ingredient, was some form of sugar. It was either glucose, sucrose, it was some type of a syrup. And usually the top 2 ingredients were forms of sugar. It was crazy. Like, you just can't make this stuff up. And I just think that, gosh, if you're health minded and you want to take a vitamin, these are things that you just should know. Like, a lot of the vitamins out there, probably 90+% of them are crap. And they're not only full of synthetic stuff, but they also are full of sugar, sweeteners, artificial colors, artificial flavors, artificial sweeteners that are no good for you. It was crazy. Sucralose was found in some of them. And these were like top tiered stuff that I found today at GNC. So this is hot off the press. I don't personally try to shop there unless I really have to, but I just, it's important to read the label. The quality of our vitamins and supplements matters, just like the quality of our food. So food first, try to get all that stuff if you can from food. And if you can't, then choose a high quality, well-sourced supplement. And in my book, I have a whole chapter on supplementation. I did a podcast a couple of months ago, pretty recently, about supplementation. So I'm not going to go into all the things to look for necessarily right here. I wanted to just jump into some of these cool benefits of taking certain micro nutrients like chromium. And it's just one of those things that I really think, it's hard to get the right amounts from your diet alone. And we'll talk about a few things with respect to that. But there's a lot of good benefits too you don't want to miss out on. And so the next micronutrient I wanted to talk about is one of my favorites, is zinc. And zinc, you guys may have heard about. It's been getting a lot of press recently because, it's immune health promoting. Dare I even say that, right? Like, I think you mentioned that on, some of those big shared sites out there, the Facebooks of the world, etc. And you get dinged by the bots, because they don't want to talk about real health. They don't want to talk about immune health. They want to talk about other stuff. And anyway, zinc, as many of us have known for years, helps with immune health. Zinc is amazing. And a lot of us don't get a lot of zinc. Zinc is just one of these things that's so cool. I mean, it's literally a cofactor in hundreds of reactions in the body. It accelerates wound healing. It's super healthy for your skin. It's awesome for immune health. I mean, it's just so cool. It can clear up and help all sorts of skin conditions like acne, for example, eczema. It helps with. It certainly boosts your immune system. It's involved in, DNA synthesis, expression, all kinds of enzymatic processes. It's just super important. And it's also natural. It's one of those natural things that is essential, meaning we can't just make it. We got to actually get it from our food or from our supplements. And the foods that have it, I'll just mention that because that's where I first try to get it. Because, food first, you know, and it's not in a lot of foods. It's in a few things, like a couple of different types of meat, especially if you're into organ meat, which I like to get into. It's hard to get sometimes, so I can't always get it, but organ meats are great. Um, Also bison, which I buy, generally make my burgers out of grass-fed and finished bison. It's also in shellfish, some in regular fish like salmon, sardines. Also, you can get it in lentils, black beans, kidney beans. I love, love, love black beans. I mean, I spent a couple of years in Guatemala. I literally had beans, black beans in particular, 3 meals a day, which is, ask me, I'll tell you about all the different recipes for black beans and how you can eat them. It's in some seeds as well, pumpkin seeds, cashews, some of the dairies, milk, yogurt, cheese, eggs, of course, certain vegetables like mushrooms, kale, peas, asparagus, my favorite, and beets, and quinoa, and brown rice. So it's in quite a few different things, although a lot of people still don't get enough of it. And you don't need a ton, but it's been suggested a lot of people can be deficient in zinc, and actually even dudes out there that may have low T. This is kind of a cool little pearl. You might get your zinc level checked, or just take a little bit of a zinc supplement, because that may improve a lot of stuff with your testosterone. You may get your levels up. If you have low levels of testosterone and your zinc is low, if you replace that, this can help your testosterone come up, which helps, of course, with building muscle, you know, other stuff that guys care about, like libido and ED, you know, getting rid of that, for example. So anyway, it's a cool micronutrient. It's mighty. It does a lot of stuff. If you take too much, mostly you'll just get diarrhea, maybe a little bit of cramps. So it's, you know, not something that has any terrible side effects, but you can get your level checked. Most people take somewhere between 20 and 40 milligrams. Those that are truly deficient may actually need more than that. So get your level checked if you can, and just get optimized, right? Zinc, eat some more of that sardine. My wife hates sardines, but I eat salmon. Salmon has zinc in it, or some of the other things I mentioned, because zinc is so cool, so helpful. And hey, and for dudes, it even has that bonus of getting your testosterone up to speed if you're low on zinc. So zinc is super cool. It can help potentially with many things. It's an essential mineral that we absolutely need. We just can't make it, so we need to get it hopefully from diet. And if not, you know, take a look and see if your multi has it. Or you can eat oysters and beef and salmon and sardines, some yogurts and that sort of thing. They may have zinc in it as well. So zinc is one of my favorites. It's awesome. It's mighty, although it's a micronutrient. Super cool. Just wanted to share a little bit about that. Another that is one of my faves, because it's often not talked about, is selenium. And selenium is one of those things that, like zinc, it's a micronutrient, and has a lot of benefits that that most don't know about, most don't talk about. And one of the biggest benefits that it has is in its antioxidant or anti-inflammatory benefits. And it's, we just pulled up a study here. I was going to see if I could share it with you. It's been super helpful with primarily this antioxidant or sort of free radical scavenging, you know, effect. Super cool selenium. And so that's one of those things that you should probably look for in your multi. It's you don't need much. It's also super cool and helpful for thyroid function, to optimize your thyroid function. Make sure that your selenium is up to speed. And like I said, it's not something that we often get a lot of in the diet. It's just one of those things that not super readily available. So many have to supplement. So I just use a good supplement that's a multi that has selenium in it. And that's where I primarily get mine. So take a look, make sure you can get it in your supplementation or just from your diet, because that's going to be something you want to benefit from. You know, it's super helpful, as mentioned, for thyroid, as well as its antioxidant effects. And so make sure you have adequate amounts. It's also been shown to possibly reduce risks of cancer, heart disease, cognitive decline. So you want to make sure you got at least 100% of the RDA in your multivitamin for selenium. So selenium is a good thing. Obviously, you don't want to overdose on it like anything else. You want to just get the appropriate amount. Most multis don't have more than 100% of the RDA, so you're usually pretty safe there, especially if you use all the rules that I talk about in my supplement podcast. And I wanted to just briefly mention magnesium because it's probably my favorite mineral. I call it the mighty, magnificent, miraculous we could throw in magnesium. It's been super helpful for me over the years, and it's not really a micronutrient because we have a decent amount, or we should have a decent amount in our body, but it's super helpful for so many things, for our body's overall health, super helpful for our mind, our brain health, because it can actually get across into the brain. It can help with mood. It can help with decreasing headaches. I personally get migraines, and so I gotta be cautious of that. So make sure my magnesium is up to speed. It's also, what most people don't know, it's one of those things that is essential for energy production. You guys have all heard of ATP. ATP is that energy currency of our cell. Our mitochondria, manufacture these little energy factories. They pump out the energy in the form of ATP, adenosine triphosphate. And in order to make that, you absolutely have to have magnesium. So if you're feeling tired, low energy, you may not have adequate magnesium. And recent studies have suggested that 7 to 8 out of 10, or up to 80% of people, don't have adequate magnesium. So super common to not have enough. It's super safe to supplement with. Probably the most available, easiest to find that are absorbable and useful, I would say, are magnesium glycinate, magnesium threonate. These are the two that I use. There's a couple others out there that are good. Try to stay away from things like magnesium oxide. There's a few others that you should try to avoid just because they don't really get absorbed very well. I mean, you can use Epsom salt, for example, for soaking in, but I wouldn't take it as a supplement because it doesn't smell good, doesn't taste good, and you're just gonna have a bunch of diarrhea afterwards. So try to get the ones that are better absorbed, like magnesium glycinate, magnesium threonate, magnesium orotate has been shown for fitness and heart health. Several others. Go back and listen to my magnesium podcast. I don't have time to get into all that, but I just wanted to mention it because it goes along with zinc and a lot of enzymatic reactions, so they go together. And also they go along with vitamin D. And so if you are low on vitamin D, it may also be because you're low on magnesium. You sort of need the two to fully be able to optimize each other and get your vitamin D up to speed. You often will need to replace and replenish your magnesium. So super cool stuff over here. Just want to make sure you knew that. And lastly, I just wanted to share about the omega-3s briefly, because that's often lacking in the diet as well. In fact, recent study I just read today, I apologize, my computer is being a little bit slow, but it was talking about how the overwhelming majority of Americans, specifically it was done in the US, so it may not necessarily apply to everyone, but it was saying, it was published in the nutrition journal, saying that the majority of us still do not get enough omegas in our diet. And so they were recommending supplementation for a great number of people. In fact, the majority. Omega-3s are the stuff that's typically stinky, right? The krill, the fish, the small guys like the tuna, or the anchovies, for example. They tend to have, even the eggs, if you guys you like the not the escargot, but the eggs, the fish eggs that some people eat as a delicacy, they would have some omega-3s, krill, this kind of stuff. And so it can also be found in supplement form from a flour called the ahi flour. I personally like that because it doesn't have that fishy smell, that fishy stench, that gives you bad breath and you burp afterwards and you're like, oh my gosh, or your partner's like, oh my gosh, don't kiss me. So I try to get it from food or plant-based supplement from the ahi flour is a cool way to get it. But most of us don't get enough of it. And the benefits are just profound. I mean, if you want to maximize, optimize your noggin, your brain, omega-3s are just super beneficial. I would say 2 things to remember for your brain: for your heart. Almost every cardiologist nowadays will recommend that you take omega-3s. They're just super important. EPA and DHA are probably the most important, icosapentaenoic acid, and the DHA as well. That's something that you guys have probably heard about. Also helps with your vision, super, super important. And like I said, your brain health. In fact, 60% of that in the retina comes from the DHA. So DHA, important for eye health, the EPA as well, brain health. Also, some cool stuff about its role in helping to treat, especially in kids, things like ADHD, some of these kind of developmental kind of things, autism even, and communication. One of my kids, actually, he's got some issues here, and he's been taking a vitamin that has these specific omega-3s in it, DHA and EPA, and it's actually been helping him. So super pumped about that in children as well. They often are also not getting enough, because how many kids go around, eating fish eggs and sardines and a bunch of fish all the time? I mean, probably not that much, right? So omega-3s are just so awesome for this, for the brain, for the heart, for your cholesterol levels. They decrease the triglycerides, that bad cholesterol. They also help to increase your good cholesterol, or the HDL. In fact, I think about 2 years after I started taking a supplement, my levels rose all the way up with the HDL, which is that heart healthy, the good kind of cholesterol, up to the 90s. And my doctor was like, just stupefied. I mean, he just looked at me and was like, holy crap, what are you doing, man? Are you like exercising like crazy? What's your diet like? He couldn't even believe it. He'd never seen a level in the 90s for a dude, because guys are a little bit behind the eight ball there. They tend to start with levels in the 40s or some even lower. And just to get up to 60 is considered a pretty good feat for a dude. My level was up to 90. And the only thing I could really attribute it to was adding in this omega-3 supplement, because my activity level hadn't changed. My diet was largely the same. And so super awesome supplement to take. Almost any doctor that knows what's up will recommend it. Like I said, cardiologists recommend it for heart health. Decreases your bad cholesterol, increases the good cholesterol, decreases that plaquing or clogging of your arteries. Just super good for brain health as well. Like I said, it helps with ADHD, especially in kids, helps with eye health. I mean, I can't say enough good stuff about it. It's such a cool, easy additional supplement to add to your armamentarium, because most of us just don't get enough from diet. It also is good not only with the brain stuff right now, but in preventing cognitive decline, things like dementias, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, things like that. So omega-3s, super awesome. And they sort of fall into my top 3 supplements that I recommend in my book, which I'll just give you a little sneak peek. You guys probably could predict this because I've talked about them before, but vitamin D, probably my favorite vitamin out there. Magnesium, the mighty magnesium, my favorite mineral. And omega-3s, in addition to an awesome multi, like that's the bare bones supplement approach, Dr. Hemingway style. So that's what I take. I take a few other things, probiotics and some things like that, but these are sort of my staple, best sort of biggest bang for your buck stuff that's super helpful. And so I just thought I would share that with you today. And in light of, my recent visit to GNC, I was super disappointed, I have to say it. The stuff in there, and most of it's super ultra synthetic. I mean, if you can do your best to get these things from food, that's food first, number one, obviously. And then if you can get them from natural sources, like I was saying with the omega that I take, comes from the ahi flour. It's not synthetic and derived in the lab. And most of them come from like krill and these sorts of marine animals, which is great too. I just personally don't love that fishy smell, odor, and aftertaste and burping that comes with them. So I opt for the plant-based variety. But the bottom line is, if you can't get at least a couple servings of fish a week, take an omega-3, and you'll be super pumped, super grateful you did, because your brain's going to be sharper. You're going to have better heart health, better cholesterol panels, so many good things. It's also super anti-inflammatory. It's really awesome for you. So that's about all I'm going to say there. And, just make sure your stuff that you take is as much as possible bioavailable. I did a whole podcast on the methylation, talking about things like methylated folate, methylated vitamin B12, which are super common to be in vitamins, but not the active form, not the methylated form. In fact, in GNC today, as mentioned, I could not even find one of their own branded vitamins that had methylation of either of the folate or the vitamin B12. They were both synthetic, not methylated, and not bioavailable. So why waste your money? You know, I used to say that, you know, you buy vitamins, you're just paying for expensive urine. And if you're not getting the bioavailable stuff, that could be very, very true. So try to get the best quality stuff out there, you know, stick to the big three that I mentioned here, you know, sort of your basis, you know, in addition to the multi, look for magnesium, vitamin D, and the omega-3s, and just make that your staple. And you will be pumped, grateful, and stoked that you did. Also, remember those little pearls on chromium that help with decreasing cravings, your decreasing of that nasty condition that too many of us have called insulin resistance. Also, it helps, you know, improve our cholesterol levels. So super awesome little tidbit there I wanted to share, because I know a lot of you guys were asking about it. So I just thought I would put it out there. And so that's all I have for today. Can't wait to get you guys my book. It is, the rough draft is in. I'm getting some editing done right now, and I can't wait to get it out to you. You guys are going to be so pumped. It's going to be amazing. Just super, 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 super pumped to have that coming out. So hope you're having a great day. Feel free to share this if you found any value here at all, things about these cool, just necessary, essential supplements that we talked about today: the chromium, the magnesium, the vitamin D, zinc. We talked about zinc, which is amazing as well. And the omega-3s. These are some of my favorites. Look for them. If you have questions about it, feel free to email me, modernmedicinemovementpodcast@gmail.com. Reach out to me, join my free Facebook group, Modern Medicine Movement Health and Wellness Facebook group, and just give me a shout out, give me a hello. And please don't forget to write a review, because I love to read. I read every one of them, and you'll be entered into a chance to win a free course, a $200 course that I have available right now today. You can grab it. I think I have it discounted at 50%. It is available at mastermind.com. Just look me up, Hemingway, you'll find it. And it's how to improve your life through natural means. You can lose weight, you can get more energy, all naturally. So take a look for that and be on the radar for my upcoming free weekly newsletter. I'm going to be getting out there real soon. Take a look at my website, modernmedicinemovement.com. I'm going to be amping that up real well. Also giving you an opportunity to join my monthly sort of VIP group, where I'll be sharing live with you twice a month, in addition to other cool stuff. It's going to be amazing. So thank you. Have a great week. Aloha. All right. Thanks again. A big aloha.